Live your life, boy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Conspiracy Farm, where we don't start the conspiracies, we just add the water. And now, your host of the most state-of-the-art, most informed podcast on the interweb, I present to you Pat Miletich and Jeffrey Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for war?
Yeah, rear naked choke a cocker spaniel, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Bro.
Change the neighborhood up.
Conspiracy Farm, go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, how is everyone doing? Appreciate your patience from the farm. I know we've been gone a little bit. Me personally, been doing my best to hold on to every bit of shred of sanity as we see the world kind of turn a little bit upside down. So just been taking some time, a little self-care, working with the fam, hanging with the fam. I got a young daughter who hasn't been able to see friends just because of all of this. So it's just a lot of stress on everybody. But as always, rolling with my partner in crime, UFC Hall of Famer, eater of worlds, lover of brownies, even though he can't eat them now because he is training for the Clash of Legends, the Fight to Unite, coming up July 18th at the Mississippi Valley Fairgrounds. And pay-per-view information will be provided very, very soon. Pat, how we doing today, champ?
I'm doing pretty good. Just got my second workout in for the day. Did a good Tabata workout with some sprint work this morning, and then just got done beating the hell out of the heavy bag and doing some jump rope and some other good stuff. So I feel pretty good, man. I'm not looking forward to getting punched in the face by Michael Nunn. Michael's second to none, but hey, look, this is for a good cause. Unite the community and give some young guys a chance to fight on the card. And we're looking at between 6,000 to 10,000 people being there, buddy. So. We're getting people back out in the big way. And I will add this. The county below us, Muscatine, Iowa, Muscatine County, the health department and I believe the city council down there tried to make it mandatory to wear masks in Muscatine County. And our good governor, Kim Reynolds, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds, said, you do not have that power. You cannot make citizens wear masks. And I said to myself, the minute she said that, she just got reelected, brother.
Well, I'm down here in St. Louis, where I'm not in St. Louis County or St. Louis City, but they made it mandatory. And, mental pictures, the lovely, and again, this isn't to minimize COVID. I'm not even, going there, but the evil eye you get for not doing the Pavlovian dog steps, man, for, walking in this path or your mask not on. It's like, you must want to kill grandma. But of course, clearly that's not the case. But we digress, man. Obviously going to be there with you, champ, announcing the fight. It's a great card, man. It's going to be a great time. So obviously wish you all the best. And I know you're going to do what you do, which is, destroy world. So you, last week, obviously we're in contact constantly. You told us about some folks that you had reached out to, or they had reached out to you, but just it was somebody like, we've got to have this conversation because as we're seeing what's going on in the world, and again, it's complete and utter chaos, specifically in the United States. They just brought in the National Guard down in Atlanta after just a band of people, rolled up on this, among many things, rolled up on this lady's car. She was rolling with her sister, I think, and then shot into the car and killed her 8-year-old daughter. The numbers in St. Louis this past weekend, the numbers in Chicago are absolutely insane. And as we said before we went on air, I was somebody sent me a video of a police officer saying one of these groups, I forget the name, so I don't want to attribute it to them, but they asked for police protection to come protect them during their defund the police rally, which is, the height of just almost insanity, but this is the world we're living in. But the folks, man, we're talking to tonight, I'm really anxious to for you guys to hear them because it is so relevant what's going on right now as the police aren't going to be there. Some are just resigning, taking early retirement, just like, I'm out of here. And we talked about this, champ, when the COVID thing first kicked off. We're going to see police officers who are going to get put in situations where they're getting in trouble for doing their job, and they're just going to be like, I'm out. I am out. This is not worth it. So The gentleman you have today, man, I'm so stoked. DSI, Distributed Security, Inc., Leslie and Ron Danielkowski are with us tonight to talk about the origins of the company and how absolutely relevant and really urgent this kind of message is about private security. Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
Good, guys. Good. Thanks for having us.
Well, our pleasure. Well, go ahead, Pat.
So I was just going to say, as you talked about, with law enforcement, being attacked constantly from all sides, from, the mayors, the city councils voting to defund them. LA defunds law enforcement and then donates $150 million to Black Lives Matter, the money that they took from the law enforcement. Look, I'm not saying that there aren't injustices in this country. There are. The court system is all screwed up. We've seen it. But we have to keep in mind that the good old Clinton administration and Joey Biden were the ones that basically put this stuff into law and the crime bills and started going after black men in unprecedented numbers. So, they were also the ones that started the road to defunding, or not defunding, but lowering hiring standards all across the country. They were the ones that stripped the budgets for training for enforcement. So they are the ones who are complaining about law enforcement, but yet they are the ones that caused the damn problem to begin with, right, Les?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of interesting. Everybody wants to talk about 1776 and different revolutionary periods. And I've been saying for a while that this is actually 1917 with, fluffy pillows and rainbows, right? Because I truly see, what I think we're seeing is, I'll call it the end of the Long March. But we're seeing 150 years worth of Marxist thought kind of come to fruition in this country. And that's one of the reasons that none of this makes sense, right? I mean, everybody with a rational brain looks at this and goes, "Hey, man, none of this makes sense. Why is this happening?" And this contradicts that, and this doesn't make any sense relative to this other thing. And that's part of the point. Is it's not supposed to.
Yes.
It's there's not supposed to be a straight line logic to this. It's supposed to set everybody off balance and freak everybody out. And so that's a part of what this is. There's no concern about whether or not it makes sense, or if it's reasonable, or if one thing rationally follows another. That's not the point. But with that in mind, of course, yeah, you've got the defund the police thing going, and law enforcement lives have been made very, very difficult by virtue of politics and by virtue of just the cultural state of things. I believe we're probably asking police officers to do too much with too little. Both in terms of funding and training and equipping and the whole nine, and so those guys are really up against a wall. And I'm very empathetic to the situation that they're in, and I can't blame any of them for throwing in the towel and saying, "Hey, man, enough's enough. I got bills to pay. I got people to worry about. I can't spend much time in court, and I got to take care of my family." And so I get it, but as a result of that, what we do at Distributed Security is just that much more important. We're a combative firearms training company, and what we do is teach individuals and organizations how to defend life and property. And I'll kind of let Ron jump in. Ron's one of the two co-founders of the company, and Ron can explain, kind of how we came to be and why, and the thought process behind all of that, and kind of what the inspiration was and is.
Yeah, thanks, Les. Pat, Jeff, nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, good to meet you.
You got your camera on, my friend, so we can see your pretty mug?
Well, I did. We were having some bandwidth issues, so I turned
Okay,
it
no,
off.
that's no problem. You were absolutely right. That's not a problem at all.
Okay. Yeah, so Pat, I guess maybe Jeff, you guys know one of our local instructors out here, Jake Priest?
Yes, absolutely.
All right,
I've known
excellent.
Jake and his father for quite a long time, actually.
Excellent. Yeah, so I moved to this area back in early 2000. I was contracting overseas at the time, and I was asked by Eric, well, all of us were asked by Eric Prince to come up with some ideas for expanding business. And long story short, I was thinking about using the Blackwater facility out in Moyock as a training facility, opening that up, not just to law enforcement, but to civilians. And so we wrote up a proposal, and I got a hold of Mike Smock, who is our CEO. I've known Mike Smock since 2000, since I've been working at the Department of Energy. And I said, hey, this is kind of the idea I have. I want to pitch it forward to Eric. Will you help me put this together? And we put together the proposal, sent it up, but then Blackwater, as everybody knows, started having some problems over there. Same thing, political climate and all. And I was looking at those numbers and I said, geez, this is something we definitely got to do, because we all kind of saw the road America was taking at the time and continues to take. And that's when we started DSI. Yeah, I think that was about 2006.
Okay.
So yeah, the whole concept was just a whole bunch of us saw what was coming down the pike, and we thought, we got to distribute security out there. We got to get people trained up, because there's just not going to be enough law enforcement. There's not going to be enough security officers out there to take care of business when it starts coming our way. So that's basically the founding of DSI.
Okay. And so, what we're interested in doing, obviously, with this is, number one, we want to get as many of our listeners to get training, because, Jeff and I for years have covered the crimes that have been committed, the corruption, all of this stuff. And we've been, unfortunately, pretty spot on all along. People have laughed at us, and then it ends up happening. And, we, no matter how much we are right, there's always going to be a certain amount of people that are going to just ignore what we're saying. But there's a good portion of people now that are listening, and those people are getting a little nervous. They're getting a little scared. So I think it's important for us to educate them on number one, we want to put together some trainings for you guys, be able to bring a bunch of our listeners to some trainings. But, let's talk about some of the training that you guys provide, so that people can kind of visualize that and kind of grasp it a little bit on what they'll be getting into with this.
Yeah. Well, I guess kind of what we're thinking for your listeners is a combined, what we call Tier 4 and Tier 3 training. Tier 4 is actually combative handgun fundamentals, working from the point of learning how to draw the weapon, to going through our manipulations and range qualifications over the course of a couple of days. And the Tier 3 portion is actually reality-based training done with sims. It's not simunitions, but it's UTM, ultimate training munitions. And so you get the experience then of actually, being in a shoot house and, being on that two-way range, right? You're being fired at, you're firing. There is a downside to being shot, because there is, a little bit of pain. It's as close as you're going to get to the real deal.
Right.
So, it's Ron can certainly speak a little more to that, but that's the short and skinny of it. So, Ron, what did I miss?
No, you hit it on the head. It's the reality-based training is everything. If you're not, we were founded for the reality-based training side of this stuff. The reality-based training is everything. It's a little bit like going into mixed martial arts, practicing mixed martial arts. You can't just talk about it. You can't just learn some techniques. You actually have to get out there and manipulate people, learn how to manipulate people, and learn how to control yourself. So that's the reality-based training. If you don't have the reality-based training, you really only have theory you're working with. You have techniques and ideas you're working with, but until you actually get put under pressure, until you do have that two-way range going on, you're learning how to attempt to communicate with people and how to deal with it when they don't want to be communicated with. Then everything else, again, is just theory. It's not going to work out real well for you. Right.
Well, and I will say this, I've been training law enforcement in defensive tactics. Well, I call it caveman stuff. But the defensive tactics, the edged weapon stuff, weapon retention, things like that. But early on, I was always the bad guy in actual simunition scenarios for law enforcement when they'd get together and stuff, and they'd throw me in as the bad guy in a drug house or a felony warrant, whatever. And I can tell you that simunitions don't feel good. And I started to learn. I learned to seek cover. I started doing all right, from experience, from getting sick of getting shot. And I tell you what, it is a great teaching tool to actually experience the pressure and the anxiety and the adrenaline of people coming at you, trying to shoot you. It makes a big difference, just like you talked about, Ron. It's easy to beat the shit out of a heavy bag, but when you got another guy standing across the cage from you who's got some skills and stuff, he's blazing punches and kicks at you, you learn pretty quick. So
and that's I'm sorry.
Without the UPM, without the RBT, it's essentially what Bruce Lee called dry land swimming, right? Well, I mean,
it's so funny you just brought up Bruce Lee, because I was going to say, like, Enter the Dragon, when Bolo punches the board, he's like, boards don't hit back.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing. No, Bruce's whole point was, unless you actually mix it up, martial arts is the equivalent of dry land swimming. You can't learn to swim on dry land, right?
Right.
You actually have to get in the water. Well, this is the same thing. Whether you're talking about, getting on the mat and mixing it up, rolling in an MMA context, or whether you're talking about, loading up and firing sims and being fired at, it's very, very difficult to recreate that experience and to learn those lessons that you only really learn under one set of conditions. And so that's the whole point, is in the end, we want to be able to train competent gunfighters, not just guys who can hang out on, a square range and shoot paper targets from from behind the bench, because that's not the world.
Yeah. It really gets even deeper than that, because what we're really talking about here is Boyd's cycle, the decision-making process, the OODA loop. You guys, I assume, are pretty familiar with that.
Go ahead and say that again.
The Boyd cycle, the OODA loop, the decision-making process, observation, orientation, decision, action.
100 is that once you're I'm thinking of on killing, 170 beats a minute. Is that a similar concept?
Okay, so we're talking about Grossman now.
Yeah, that's why I was because I had read that many years ago, so I maybe
there's a relationship, but
sure.
What Ron's talking about is a little different thing. John Boyd was a fighter pilot during the Korean War.
Okay,
and essentially he outlined the decision-making process as the OODA loop, OODA.
Okay.
Observe, orient, decide, act, and what's implied there is rinse and repeat. And so, an awful lot of combatives, whether it's armed or unarmed, really boils down to that. And frankly, it applies to business strategy and a number of other things as well. And over time, with experience, that cycle from observe to act gets shorter.
Sure.
Right. And you can use that as a disruptive sort of technique to kind of, to step into and interrupt your opponent's OODA loop as well. So there are some strategic aspects to that we teach and instruct on very, very heavily, because it's quite frankly, there's no replacement for it. So that's what Ron was referring to. But yeah, is there a relationship? Is Grossman on point on a lot of stuff? Yeah, he is.
Okay.
It's I'm going to say it's one step to the left.
But I mean, I guess it would come down to, the OODA loop, as you speak, is recognizing when somebody takes their ball cap off and sets it on the hood of their car, you're going to get in a fight.
Yeah.
Recognizing when somebody blades their stance, they're going to do something.
Yeah, I mean, I boil a lot of that down to what I've always just called pattern recognition, right? You see a pattern play out a number of times, and you start recognizing that sooner in that cycle, right? And I mean, if you spend any time in the fight game, of course, you start to figure that out. You start to see those earmarks. When somebody's cocking that shoulder or doing, they start to tuck that chin and lean with the forehead. You start to smell all that stuff, right?
Sure.
Before it even starts to come to, and so that's a form of that OODA loop thinking.
Yeah,
it's interesting that there's a name for that. I've never particularly trained, never in the military, a little bit of martial arts, but not to that degree. But I've always seen you look across the bar, a situation like, oh, something's about to happen. Like you can just see certain telltale markers of something escalating. But now that's fascinating.
Well, what's funny is, Pat, you were just talking about, the fact that you guys have been kind of predictive about current situation, right? And
so much of that has been just pattern recognition, like you were talking about before.
Exactly.
Understanding history and seeing these things happen again. It's not anything nebulous or
exactly where I was going, Jeff.
Yeah.
Right.
Human beings are patterned animals, right? I mean, as much as some of us would like to think that we're very, very random, that's just not true. We may not recognize the patterns, or the wavelength of our patterns may be long enough that they're tougher to recognize, but we're all pretty patterned. We all have a comfort zone. We all have a series of events that we like to stick to, that makes us feel good about the way the world's ordered.
Well, even in going to this larger technocracy that's coming, they're able, through our digital footprint, they're able to extrapolate certain algorithms based off of our digital behavior to the point where it's becoming predictive.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Amazon does it with the buying patterns. I mean, it's out there, right? And so it's just a synthetic version of what your brain will do, given enough experience to see those patterns repeat themselves enough times to become, recognizable. So, they can accelerate it a little bit with computer programs, but it's still the same, really still the same technology.
Yeah. Which is kind of scary because they've refined it, man. And I say, like you were saying earlier, that's such a great point, man. Everybody's, this does not fucking make any sense. What is going on? And no other time. I mean, this is kind of what's let me know. Pat and I've talked about it forever. Like, I wouldn't say this is the war, this is the time, if you will, but this is definitely a huge reset where there's no going back to normal. And the way they've slowly inverted reality to make completely abnormal normal is a part of this design, which is it's crazy.
And that's the thing with who, CDC and Fauci and all these idiots, and they're not idiots. They're being very deliberate in what they're doing, as Jeff has said numerous times. Dog training 101. Okay, you got to wear a mask. Okay, you can take the mask off. Oh, we got to put the mask back on. Take it off. That's all that is getting us used to, or I should say the lemmings, which I call them, used to just jumping when they're told to jump. And it's 6 foot. Okay, now, and look, we've got a few people out there, as I said, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds luckily said, you don't have the right to do that. And that's a crack in the door for the citizens to recognize, hey, man, power is an illusion. And if everybody would stand up, I mean, I was just, and I had to just remove myself. A guy who was my attorney many years ago, who lives in Montana now, but he's surrounded by just real hardcore leftists, and they're talking about this mask. You got to have the mask. You got to have the mask. And I go, we've got, I don't know, my friend who's an attorney, who was smart enough to become an attorney. We've got all these other people on here. I assume you're all pretty educated and you're pretty smart, but were any of you even remotely following the financial indicators and the global banking stocks that were telling us for 2 years we were headed off a cliff? And before that, after the 2008 collapse, all the quantitative easing, that every time they did it, I went, they're just making the bubble bigger, man. This is going to be ugly when. And not one of them, they always revert back to, hey, wear your mask. You got to wear your mask. It's incredible how easily trained these people are, because they're thinking with their emotions instead of their logic. And this is a very dangerous point in history when you've got millions upon millions of people that are thinking like this. And I said numerous times, these are the people that can get us all killed.
Yeah, no, and you're right. It's all about conditioning, right? You know, I mean, it's you're right. I mean, it's dog training 101. But it's, you know, it's this constant cycle of distraction, you know, and so, you know, yeah, they want to talk about the mask. Oh, it's this, it's that, you know, and every other day, of course, you know, the WHO and the CDC and Fauci are all saying 3 different things that are all completely contradictory, you know, and 48 hours from now, they're all going to pivot, right?
Yeah.
And they're all going to say, you know, they're all going to take one step to the left,
Right.
and say the thing that the guy on the right said, you know, 2 days ago. And so everybody's in this constant state of turmoil. And so, yeah, to your point earlier, Jeff, you know, you go to Walmart, you go to Kroger, you know, you go to Hy-Vee, wherever it is you go to get groceries, right? You know, and you know, you got everybody and their goat giving you the stink eye, you know, wanting to smack you with you know, the nearest thing because you've walked the wrong way down an aisle. You know, well, it's
not to hijack.
I deliberately walked against the arrows everywhere I went.
Well, yeah,
I didn't even notice them when someone first said it to me, because I'm just not used to. I mean, I'm used to shopping. I never even noticed them in the first place. But you know, half jokingly and almost 100% jokingly, Lewis Black said something about people like this, the Karens of the world, who he said back in elementary school when the when the principal spoke on the PA system, they wept openly.
Well,
they were just, you know, just believers, man. I mean, God love them, but it's like at some point in time, like you just said, it's dangerous. It becomes very dangerous. And I've said this so many times on the show. People's lack of information, or ignorance, if you will, is going to become dangerous. And then here we are with snitch lines and all this other shit, dude. It's happening.
Yeah.
Well, and I pointed out to these people also, I said, do any of you recognize that the head of the World Health Organization is the former health minister of Ethiopia, who was brought up on crimes against humanity, on charges of crimes against humanity? There's pictures of him with all these other guys that are being tried, sitting there in an Ethiopian courtroom. Now, talk about a guy that's a puppet for Gates and all these other guys that are just paying him off.
Well, China as well, yeah.
Putting him in position and telling him to say what he needs to say. Yeah. This guy's so compromised, he's got no choice, right? But to the average person, they just don't understand it. They simply don't comprehend it because they have no historical reference. They haven't paid attention.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard to blame folks. I mean, everybody's busy living their lives, right? You know, and you know, it's the goofballs like me that watch this stuff, right? Because it's part of my job. Right. You know, and it's always made me scratch my head. And I've seen this stuff play out overseas. I mean, and that's part of what the pattern recognition is for me. I mean, you know, some of us have seen this more than once. We just haven't seen it on American soil yet.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we've seen some of the earmarks, seen some of the precursors, but
it reminds me some of these lemmings who are just buying into it. I'm old, but I just remember junior high and high school, like history. God, I fucking hate history. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? It's like, for me, I just never was. I just happened to like history, but IQ or absolutely. It's just understanding patterns, whatever it is, whether it's history or anything else. It's like, it's just crazy how people just have kind of abdicated their own common sense. But so, I mean, obviously we don't have too much time with you guys, but so we recognize the fix is in. Like, we smell like a fucking fart in the car. The services you guys provide, you know, because we know the police aren't necessarily going to be there, you know, as this escalates. The services you guys provide are specifically for more private security for businesses, homes. Extrapolate. Let us know a little bit. How do your teams work? I mean, you guys, like you said in other conversations, you guys are ready to go within 24 hours. Tell us how you guys work, man, and what the services you guys provide.
Yeah. So,
and to whom?
In essence, we've got, you know, we do individual training for individuals, and we train organizations, enterprises, businesses, churches, schools, you know, those sorts of things. And yes, we do have quick reaction team capabilities. You know, we can put a team on the ground if things are heating up and we have a client that gives us a call and says, hey, we need boots on the ground. You know, the barbarian's at the gate. We don't know what we're doing. You know, we can put boots on the ground. We can secure a facility while we buy ourselves enough time to then train, you know, that enterprise's staff to take over and once we pick up, pull chalks and move on. The idea there then is that that enterprise is very tightly tied to law enforcement, with the understanding that yes, when something bad happens, law enforcement can't be there. The first responders are going to be the people in the middle of whatever that mess is.
Yeah.
And the law enforcement is going to have to, have a period of time to respond. When law enforcement does respond, you want to have a handoff. You don't want law enforcement freaking out because there's guys with guns, and you have to be able to have that coordinated, and law enforcement has to understand, what the situation on the ground is going to be. Yeah, we've contained the threat. It's all yours. We're walking away. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Do you guys keep a good conversation going with different? I'm sorry.
No, but then they radio you and say, but you left 17 bodies laying on the street.
Well, hey man, that's what security
Job's
cameras are
done
for.
here. Security
cameras will let you know where the bodies are after something bad has happened, right? That's what the passive security measures are for.
Right.
Yeah. I think, Jeff, you were going to ask if we maintain good relationships with law enforcement in the areas that we're training enterprises. Yeah, absolutely. A really good example is some of the work we've done with the schools in Wyoming. The sheriff's department there in Cody, actually, when we're doing training, has turned the 911 switchboard over to us for training purposes, so that we have every realistic aspect that we can possibly incorporate in the training. So everything down from the inception of an event to recognizing that event, calling 911, suppressing the event, handing off to law enforcement after the fact, or after they've responded. All those things are incorporated in that sort of training. So yeah, the interface with law enforcement is absolutely vital to the success of this kind of program.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen more and more. It was funny. I was watching one down in New Mexico where they were talking. I forget what group it was, talking about how important it was to keep those liaisons between law enforcement intact. A bunch of armed guys, and I saw one black guy. I'm like, holy crap, that looks a lot like John Jones. And sure enough, freaking John Jones, John Bones Jones, is out there with
that story. He was
with a
out.
group.
Yeah. Ron, what did I miss on that? Anything?
What was that? I'm sorry.
Just in terms of the training and the law enforcement.
Yeah, no, you didn't. You know, just to let you guys know, most of our instructors are law enforcement and military, and so we were talking about the decision-making process earlier and how important that is. Not centralizing, your ability to act on the ground immediately, and that ties back in with the law enforcement because most of our instructors, again, are military law enforcement in the local area, so they already have those ties. So yeah, right off the bat, we established good working relationships with the law enforcement, and a lot of them become our instructors. So yeah.
So,
and I strongly suggest, man.
Sorry. We're both eager to ask you guys questions.
Yes.
Obviously, given past history of socialist and communist takeovers of nations, you guys have been on the ground before when you were in the military or other contracting duties where things deteriorated, and you go from dealing with law enforcement to, if these lunatics have their way, well, law enforcement's done, and then they, in history, have hired the prisoners that they've let out of prison, thrown a badge on them and a gun, and had them go out and do their dirty work for them. So now you're no longer dealing eventually with law enforcement if this thing goes the way they want. Now you've got a whole different dynamic because you've got a guy with a badge, you got a guy with a gun, people that we respect, but they're no longer that's no longer the body that used to be in that uniform, or the mind or the spirit that used to be in there. Now you've got a shitbag that you're dealing with who's been put in a position of power. Now we've got problems, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there's a point in this revolutionary cycle where it's not uncommon at all for things to go kinetic, right? For all of a sudden the who were previously the good guys have now become the insurgents, so to speak. And so, yeah, they're, well, I mean, it's about
anti-government
revolution,
forces.
right?
Well, you look, if things go, yeah, it's not to interrupt you, but if things go crazy and we have to defend ourselves, suddenly we're the anti-government forces.
Right. Well, and a good friend of mine and I were talking about this just over a year ago, and kind of looking at some of the anti-gun stuff coming down the pipe in Virginia, and we were kind of trading stories back and forth about having operated in non-permissive environments, where if it's known that you have a weapon, you're wrong and you're going to be shot, killed, imprisoned. And my friend's comment at the time was, yeah, we're all going to be living in an NPE really soon. And it was a little.
What is that for our lay non-military speaking? What is that?
Yeah, non-permissive environment where you're not permitted to be armed, right? You're not. You're just supposed to be a good subject, and that's your role. And so, that's one of the reasons that we draw as heavily as we do on our past military and past law enforcement experiences, is because particularly in some higher end military capacities, you do learn how to operate in non-permissive environments because that's just the job. And so those skills are useful, and I'm not advocating that everybody goes off the deep end and starts running around like they're mini insurgents. I'm not encouraging that at all. I don't think that's good for anybody at this point.
Too late.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's good for anybody at this point. But yeah, I hate to think that there might be a time where, we have to adopt that kind of mindset. I would hate to see that in my.
Well, especially in the world where, the situation in St. Louis here, man. I don't know how you could not halfway be paying attention. I'm very familiar with that area in St. Louis. It's a private area. It's a huge iron gated community. So whatever, they tore that thing down, and whether they're walking on the sidewalk or the street, that was private property. And they've already declared, and again, not to convolute the fog of whose intentions are what, BLM, Antifa, they're talking about, we're going to the suburbs, we're taking what's ours. There's been just absolutely a rampant, scourge of just people being attacked just because they're white. You know what I mean? And they've made their, kill whitey and all this other shit. And I don't know who all agrees with whatever, who just has their heart in the right place. But I'm not going to assume you have your, again, it's almost guilty by association. Your crew has declared some pretty nefarious fucking intentions. I'm not about to sit here and just let you trespass on my home, especially if I have kids. They did the right thing. Granted, they looked a little off because their military preparedness or their gun training wasn't quite on point, but that's not even the point. The fact that they've been demonized for protecting themselves as if they were the bad guy, considering what all these cats have been doing, is insane.
And the thing is that there's only one rational, and again, back to that word, rational and reasonable. There's the take the nonsense in Troy, New York, at that Baptist church over the weekend, right? There's only
what
one.
Happened. I don't even think I know what happened.
Some
it was crazy. It was insane.
BLM folks essentially camped outside of this Baptist church in Troy, just harassing the hell out of the parishioners, obstructing their way in, assaulted a couple of people, and if you just take the physical contact out, right, and you just look at some of that footage, and they're 6 inches in front of people's faces with bullhorns. All they're trying to do is agitate. All they're trying to do is get a response.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're spoiling for a fight. They're trying to instigate somebody, taking that shot. Because then at that point, they're going to claim they're the victim. And, then they're going to act like they're justified in whatever it is that they really want to do anyway. And, that's the problem, right? And so back to the McCloskeys in St. Louis, the difficulty for everybody right now is understanding where that line is, right? Because what would have what would have been the line before in terms of when it's reasonable to respond in an aggressive manner, has been so stomped on, through the conditioning, through the government just allowing this stuff to happen and not actually prosecuting any of this stuff and not stepping in and
people getting bailed out. People who are accused of murder, domestics, all kinds of stuff. They're being bailed out left and right, and the cops are losing their mind. I just messaged back and forth with a good friend of mine who used to be a law enforcement officer in Quad Cities. He's law enforcement in Madison, Wisconsin. He said it is insane up there that all of these people, I'm telling you, guys who are accused of murder and stuff are being bailed out by these leftists for a reason. They want them on the streets. They want them causing problems. They want them intimidating. They want them attacking and hurting innocent people.
And you can't find it now, but the Act Blue, like finding the financing through Black Lives Matter into Act Blue, you're talking about tens of hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, this is how they can spread out and again, to almost like the Bolsheviks, like this was all funded by huge finance at the top. We don't even need to get into that, but that's the same thing that's happening here because they're trying to utilize the same means to create this larger reset, this larger conflict, Hegelian dialectic, a problem, reaction, solution. They're going to bring in the solution to the problem that they created. And again, just as is these BLMs or whomever, these young fucks are out there full of piss and vinegar. Same as back in the day, dude. When they're done with you, they're going to line you up. If they don't literally line you up and shoot you, they will be done with you when they're done, when you're done fulfilling their purpose.
Yep.
No, you're right. It's all thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. You're right. It's all Hegelian. So.
And for me, I break it down to the simplest terms: is how many teeth can I take out trying to shove a bullhorn back down his throat?
No, that's a solid metric. There's no
solid metric
because that's the only language they're going to understand.
See,
they
say fighters. See, Pat, you and I both know that's not true. See,
when the muscle finally flexes, bro, these people are gonna scurry.
And that's what I'm saying. These motherfuckers, I mean, some of them might even be whatever, maybe a little more elite level, but they're coming off their Xbox controller, thinking because they solved, Black Ops, Call of Duty, they think they really want this fucking smoke. Dude, they have no idea whether it's our gentleman here tonight, Sonny Puzikas, former Russian Spetsnaz, some real hard-hitting motherfuckers who are like, you guys don't even realize. You're poking the bear, but you don't even kind of want what could possibly come. You guys are throwing Molotov cocktails and firecrackers, maybe a few armed people here and there, but dude, you're talking about coordinated, trained, tactical motherfuckers who are going to bring the serious smoke. They don't want it. They don't want it at all.
See, that's why, look, man, an awful lot of guys I know from back in the day, I mean, we all live in BFE. We don't want no part of this nonsense, man. We've played this game, right?
Yeah.
And there's a funny little meme floating around social media right now that says, man, just wait till the guys who wanted to be left out of this shit have to get involved.
Yeah,
I've seen plenty of those. Yeah, I mean, you'd rather, again, any good war movie is an anti-war movie. The warriors know. I would rather be a freaking warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. You don't want to see. I mean, I've never been in it, but as a history guy, your heart breaks when you see, especially shit like World War I, just the meat grinder, dude. World War II, the meat grinder. I mean, even Vietnam, and it's just. You don't really want to see what real war brings. And I say this again for the umpteenth time. I'm not a huge fan of PBS, but go to check out the documentary called Genocide Worse Than War. None of it happens overnight. There's a level of conditioning that takes place where you no longer see your enemy as human. Someone sent me a thing today. This BLM gal's like, white people are this recessive gene, non-human. I mean, of course it's horse shit. But there's a lot of young dipshits who believe that and who will run with it. But at the end of the day, any level of rhetoric that makes your enemy not a human is how Rwanda happens. It's how Srebrenica happens. It's how, Darfur happens, or, you name it. You name the scenario. And we're just none of it's by Yuri Bezmenov said. None of these revolutions are organic. Nothing happens by accident. It's all by design. It's all coordinated, funded, etc. It's heartbreaking, dude.
Yep. No, it's a rough situation, man. It'll be interesting to see where it shakes out. But it's a hell of a time to be alive.
Yeah. So what
It
we'd
definitely
like to
is.
do,
So,
go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead, buddy.
no, you're going to say the same thing. Hopefully, about we're going to come out and do some training. Hopefully.
Yeah. We're gonna come out and do some training, and also we want to be able to coordinate and put dates on our website. Training dates.
So what we'll
Go
do,
ahead.
the plan is we'd like to do this up at the site, a couple hours up the road from the QC, and we'll get a link up on you guys' website so that your listeners can go straight to that link, sign up for training.
Do you have facilities across the country? Is this kind of your main? I thought you correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, we've got training locations in several places. Our primary area of operations is Northern Midwest. We've got a lot of training going on in Ohio, in the Detroit area, Toledo area, Quad Cities, obviously. We've got some stuff going on in the Chicago area as well, as far west as Cody, Wyoming, and we've got some training going on in Pittsburgh, New York, down into Virginia. So yeah, we're spread out pretty good.
Nice.
But yeah, where we like to focus particularly on the enterprise side is Northern Midwest, essentially the I-80 corridor. So
lot going on there.
yeah, there's plenty, man. I mean, between the Quad Cities and Pittsburgh, basically is, there's plenty of stuff to do there. Quick dog leg up to Detroit. So, but yeah, man. So we'll get a link put together, get it up on the site, get a description of what the training is. I know you got a fight coming up in a couple of weeks, Pat. So we don't want to interrupt that. And I'm guessing time frame is probably September-ish at this point, unless you guys have got some objections to that.
Not at all.
No,
Sooner the better, man.
It'll cool down a little bit. We're all a little steamy right now.
Yeah.
Who wants to be on the range at 108? That's no good for anybody. So yeah, we'll let the sun drop a little bit and have some fun out on the range and get into the RBT and we'll bring the team out and of course everybody get to hang out at the lodge and hang out with you guys. And you guys are much bigger celebrities than me and Ron. We're no fun. We're just sticks in the mud. We're just old bros.
Well, and we're gonna shoot it too. Obviously, shoot it, put together a nice little package, hopefully promote the thing, and post it on our website, our YouTube page, etc. But again, everybody, we're gonna post a link to their company here. It's not just the Quad Cities. This is where we'll be doing it, but this is kind of the hub of their training. But they do have stuff set up all over through the website, through the link. You'll be able to hook up with these guys and wherever you are. Hopefully, get something going, whether it's training or hiring some private security. Because I'm telling you, like right now something like this is such a very welcomed service, quite frankly, because we're just seeing the situation going down and cops just not being there.
And it comes. Go ahead. Sorry, Les.
Nobody's coming to save you. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
And it's
a numbers game.
It's time to be proactive. And that's something that I've said numerous times. For me, I've been trying to get out to the country for quite a while now, to have some land, to have a house that, I can flip a switch and go off the grid if I have to type thing. And, for me, I know how to fight. I know how to shoot like a caveman. I can shoot as well as a caveman. I'm not advanced. I'm not in any way, shape, or form. I'm very basic. But I can hit the broadside of a barn with a pistol or a rifle. I'm capable of doing that. I've learned a little bit of the tactics on room and building clearing and some other stuff. And like I said, been the bad guy in scenarios when law enforcement was coming for me. So I know the fundamentals, really, like the very bottom of it, right? But for me, I've been in fights with 150 people where it was me and another guy in the center, and eventually it was me and 4 Davenport police officers with German Shepherds surrounded by 150 people in the middle of Harrison Street in Davenport in a snowstorm, right? And it was a battle. I fought my ass off to get out of that building, and then it all poured out into the street. So I've been in some hairy situations. I've had people try and stab me and shoot me, all that good shit. But for the average person out there that, we're the only animal on the planet that has no idea how to defend ourselves unless we're taught. We are completely helpless. And so, I had a guy, and I'm just going to point this out because I want people to realize the perspective. When a friend of mine asked me to speak at a Rotary Club, and there was probably about 50 people there, and I gave the speech about what it took to become a mixed martial arts world champion, all the different components of training, all the different components of strength and conditioning, the diet, everything that went into it to become a world champion. And there was one guy sitting there with his arms crossed like this, kind of like, yeah, you're boring me. And I knew he had a problem. I knew he had a problem from the minute I started talking. I got done talking. I said, does anybody have any questions? His arm shot up right away. And he goes, why would I even want to learn this shit? And I said, let me try and put it to you this way. I said, the number of assaults on people, basically it's 1 in 4 people are going to be assaulted in their lifetime. I'm assuming you're a father and a husband. Yes, I am. Okay. You've got children. And I said, so have you boxed? Have you ever wrestled? Have you ever learned any combatives at all? No, nothing. And I said, okay, so, and I repeated that to him. I said, we're the only animal born on the planet with no self-defense instincts born into us. Everything else has claws and teeth and this and that, and they know to run or fight or flight, whatever. They just have it instinctually. They know what to do. Well, humans don't have that. So if you and your family, when you leave your front door of your house and get in your car and you're attacked, there's not a damn thing you can do for your family. Not a damn thing. And you're all victims. You're all victims. I said, but when I walk out of my house, I said, it's going to take a lot of people to get the job done with me. A lot of people. That's why you want to learn this stuff, right? Yeah. Because that brings confidence. When you can walk places, I've some pretty hairy situations, and I've been able to get out of them because of those skill sets. And everybody out there, imagine the respect if everybody knew how to kill somebody, right?
Hmm.
That is a total different dynamic. So that's why we want to urge our listeners, to jump in on this training that we're going to end up posting about, and we're going to keep repeating.
Absolutely. Ronald, do you have any closing statements, my friend, before we let you guys slide?
Well, I'd kind of trailer on what Pat was saying. We've ran numerous tier 3s throughout the years, and the level of confidence that you get from actually knowing for a fact, not just guessing, not just because you took some under A class and were shooting paper targets, but knowing for a fact that you can do the job is like one of the greatest gifts you can give to people in the world. And that's what we're here for, is to be able to give people that gift of self-reliance, being able to defend themselves.
And the inverse of that, like Pat, you were just saying, walk into your, we were talking to Sonny Puzikas, and it's almost like an insurance policy. It's better to have it and not need it, and need it not have it. The feeling of not being able to defend yourself and your family and have something go down and they become victims because you weren't prepared. That has to be like the worst feeling ever, especially, as a man, you're supposed to be in charge of protecting your family, et cetera. Les, I'm sorry, you're about to say something there.
No. The only other thing that I'd add to that, and this plays directly into your experience as well, Pat, with fighting and stuff. There's a lot of companies out there that do gun stuff. What makes us unique is kind of how we define training, being instruction plus practice, right? And so, Pat, as well as anybody, you don't go to a weekend seminar and come out a fighter, right? You have to take those skills, and you have to be persistent in practicing those things and refining that technique for that to be useful and usable under pressure, and when it's necessary. And that's one of those things that is very difficult to do if what you're after is NRA training, or even some of the brick and mortar places out there, kind of the big names. Nobody's going to run you down like we do, to make sure you're practicing stuff after the fact, and make sure that you're keeping those skills up and dry practicing and doing all that sort of thing. To the degree that it starts to be more like, a weekly workout at the gym, that sort of practice, because that's where real skill comes from.
repetition, where it becomes that kind of muscle memory, which is it becomes second nature. Man, you guys are awesome, and again, you guys aren't going anywhere, man. It's hopefully, potentially, obviously, or hopefully a new sponsor of the show, and we can put business your way. We would love to get you guys back on, because as things develop, the role of companies like yours are going to be so much more integral to people's safety. So DSI, ladies and gentlemen, Distributed Security Incorporated. We will have a link posted in the description here. Les, Ron, thank you guys so very much, man. So glad, Pat, you wound up hooking up with these fellas. Another score, and anything you guys want to shout out before you guys head out? Social
how to get a hold of you
stuff?
guys? Any specific website and
just distributedsecurity.com. We'll take you right to our homepage. You can access an awful lot of information there. We also have a mobile app that's free, has a ton of free content, some basic drills, things of that nature. I'll make sure that you guys get that link to put on the webpage as well.
Perfect.
And people can just download it directly from there. It's available for Android and for iOS. So yeah, there's a ton of resources out there, guys. And let's get everybody going the right direction and putting themselves in a position where they can defend themselves adequately.
Yes. Let's stay hard to kill, ladies and gentlemen. Stay hard to kill.
Stay hard to kill. I think we want to call this the DSI Warrior Retreat or something, don't we?
Sure. Let's do it.
Something like that.
Well, when you hit them up, let them know the farm sent you, so they know how freaking awesome we are. It's good to be linking up with you guys, man. This is that kind of synergistic kind of relationship I want to have, man. Security, baby, because we need it. We are living in crazy times. So,
look, man, you're coming.
Oh no,
you're acting like you're a disinterested third party all of a sudden.
No, hell no, bro, not at all. I want to get shot by some of that simu ammunition or whatever the hell. Les, Ron, I appreciate you guys, man. Distributed Security Inc., Patrick J, I love you like midnight loves the moon. Farmers, friends, family, everybody, I appreciate all of you guys' patience. This has not been an easy time for all of us, man. So pardon our little pause for the cause, but we are back. The engine is back fired up, running on 100. So peace and so much love to you guys. Again, thank you for your patience. Stay tuned. There'll always be more. And tomorrow night, Pat, are you good for a Wednesday night 7:00 Q&A?
I think I can do that, and we'll tear it up, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again, guys, and thank you again, Les and Ron. Stay tuned, guys. Holla.
Pleasure. Thanks, guys.